Working in the public school system. That's what I'm going to talk about today. Back in 1983, I got a job at our local school here as a TA, a teaching assistant. And I was young and really didn't know anything about kids per se, but I wanted to work, and what better place than at the school? So I got hired, and probably within 2 months, maybe less, of getting the job, I found out I was pregnant with Matt. So here I am, just starting out at a new position, and find out I'm pregnant. I was going to be able to make it through the whole school system because Matt was born. He was born May 20th, and that would have taken us till the end of the school year. That year was full of surprises for me. I found out that I liked little kids, and they liked me. Now remember, I'm an only child, so I grew up by myself, and didn't really know how to play well with others. But in the school system, I just adored those kids and got along well with them. And when you're in a public or a school setting, you're going to get sick all the time. I did not have any immunities built up. Every time something came around, I got it. I was sick all the time and pregnant. And as time went on, my hands were swelling, my feet were swelling. I went to the doctor, and he said, you need to sit so much every day with your feet up. And I talked to my principal about it, and he said, yes, you would have time during the day to go into the teacher's lounge and put your feet up for a little bit, just to make it where I would be comfortable and my health was not at risk. Then it came to the point where, and it was probably the end of April, that my doctor said, look, you need to go home for the rest of your pregnancy, take care of yourself, keep your feet up, etc. So I went and talked to my principal, Mr. De La Paz, and I told him what the doctor said, and he said, I agree 100%. You need to go home, take care of yourself for that child. And he said, I'm going to tell you something else. You need to stay at home till your child starts school. And I thought about that, because my mother was a working mother, and I always had to stay with babysitters and things, and I didn't want that for my child. So when that end of that month or whatever, end of April, I left my job and had Matt, and did not go back to work until many, many years later, about 14 years later, I think. I think Matt was 14 years old when I decided that I would go back to work full time. But in the meantime, yes, I have my notes. I think Matt was about, when he started school and he was in kindergarten, I signed up to be a parent volunteer. And I would help to go in the workroom and run copies and stuff like that for the teachers. But what I enjoyed was story time. That was really my main thing as a parent volunteer. All of Matt's class would sit around, and I would read them a story. And Jason and Jared hadn't started school yet, and they would sit there with me. And I realized I really liked being there at the school. And one day, trying to make sure I don't forget anything in order, the principal, who we knew on a personal basis, asked me if I would substitute. Now, I don't know about you guys, but substitute teaching, really? That has to be one of the most horrible jobs in the world, right? He said, I need some substitutes, and he said, I'll let you start anywhere you want to. If you want to start in kindergarten or first grade, or you want to go to fifth grade, because in the elementary I went through fifth grade. And I definitely did not want to substitute in any class where the children were older than mine because I was nervous about it. I knew how to handle whatever age my kids were, but not older than that. And so the very first day I substituted was in a first grade class, and I just loved it. Let me pick Gooby up. Okay, Gooby. I just loved substituting, and I remember calling my mom on the phone back then and saying, "Mom, I love substitute teaching. It's like playing school, and I get paid for it." And I substituted for 5 years. The first year I stayed strictly in the elementary. The second year, the middle school principal called me up and said, "Hey, we really need subs over here. Won't you give it a shot?" And I was terrified. I mean, I think Matt was in, well, I know Jason and Jared were in kindergarten when I first started subbing, so Matt would have been in third grade. And I was terrified of older kids like that, but I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot. And found out I absolutely loved the junior high students. But I did try high school, subbing in the high school. That was not for me. In the elementary, the classes are very small, 12 to maybe 15 children. Middle school sometimes was a little larger. In high school, they were packed out classes. And I didn't have children that old. I did not know how to deal with teenagers. There were some mouthy boys that got the best of me, and I decided I would just stick with elementary. And so I subbed for 5 years, and then let me see here. Sorry guys, I have to follow my notes. I subbed for 5 years, and then a position came available as a teaching assistant, and I took the job. And the weekend before I was supposed to start on Monday, I called that principal back up and I said, "I really don't know if I want to take this job. It would be a full-time job. I'm used to being a stay-at-home mom. I just don't know." And she talked me into it. And when I started it, I just loved it. I always loved working at the school. I really did. That first year, I was hired to help out in a computer lab, but I also went into the classrooms and assisted children that needed extra help. And it was funny because by the end of that first year, everybody was, "Woohoo, school is out for summer." I was kind of saddened by it. I actually loved my job so much, I didn't want to be out for the summer. So the second year, I switched classrooms, but pretty much did the same thing, going in and out of classrooms, assisting with children that needed the help. And then the third year, I moved in a room with one of my best friends, Connie Solis. Hey, Connie. And Connie was the ESL teacher for the district, English as a second language. And she worked with kids from 4 years old up to seniors in high school if they needed assistance. And most of the children that were in ESL were Spanish-speaking students. I did not know how to speak Spanish, but I wasn't there to teach them Spanish. I was there to help them learn English and to speak English. And that year that I was with Connie, we got a student in from Romania, and their language is Hungarian. Now, Connie didn't know how to speak Hungarian, and she was her ESL teacher. So the following year, Connie had retired, and I took over as the ESL teacher for the whole district, from 4-year-olds up to seniors in high school. And I had my own classroom. It was after 3 years, this 4th year, I had my own classroom. And I absolutely loved that too. It was small classes, very small, because it was we're dealing with a elite group of children, and I loved that. That was great. And then the next year, again, I had the same classroom, but I wasn't the ESL teacher. I taught math to first and second grade students, and also science to the first grade students. And I love that. Math, not so much, even though it was just first and second grade. But the science I loved. I just loved it. I had fish in the room. I had a little tadpole that turned into a frog. Even had a baby armadillo in there for a while. And one of my good friends, Glenda Brown, was the science teacher for the upper grade levels, and she had all kind of resources. So whatever unit I was working on, I would go to Glenda and say, hey, do you have any rocks that I can use, or do you have any soil samples I can use, or whatever we were working on. And Glenda, of course, was eager to help me, and I just loved that. And then the following year, I got moved to the computer lab, elementary computer lab. And y'all, at that time, I barely knew how to do anything but check my email. But no one else knew what to do either. So I kind of got thrown into it, and it was probably the best thing that happened to me. I got to run the show, come up with a curriculum. I had all classes from pre-K through 5th grade, at different times. And during that time also, I was doing phonics classes for younger children. I worked with dyslexic children, and it was just so rewarding. I stayed there for, let's see, what did I write down? 7 or 8 years, I guess, as the computer lab teacher. And then I got moved. I was offered a job in the high school as their secretary. And I absolutely loved my job. We had a business manager that convinced me to go do the high school secretary job. And I got paid more money than I did as a teaching assistant. And I had all these students through elementary, and now they were in high school, so I loved seeing them. It was a lot of work. I did not have any assistants there in the office, and it was just a huge job. And so I did that for 2 years, and then I decided I needed to get back to my true love, which was the elementary students. And I talked to the principals and the superintendent, and there was not anything available at the time, but shortly after, I was able to get back into the computer lab in elementary, and that is where I remained until I retired. And I retired a year early because of my eyesight. I had put in for disability, and that was in May of 2017. And by the end of June, I received a letter that I was officially retired due to my disability of my eyesight. And I had turned in all my medical records and everything. And so, rather than going, woo, I'm retired, I was kind of sad. I only had 1 more year to go before I would have officially retired anyway. But it was something. I really loved it so much. I kind of hated to leave. But, and it's been 3 years, I have no desire to go back, even if I could. I have no desire to substitute. I have no desire to be a parent volunteer anymore. But my experience at our local public school here was amazing. I worked with so many wonderful teachers. I had some wonderful principals. I had some great superintendents to work for. And I don't know, I guess everyone has a calling in their life, and I really think that was my calling because I enjoyed it so much, and I guess the kids really liked me too. So, come here, Goob. Quit crying on TV. So I spent over 20 years in the public school system, and if you count the substituting and everything, it would have been closer to 25 or 27 years altogether in the public school system. And so I know teaching is a job where most people feel they're underpaid and underappreciated, but the teachers I worked with were so dedicated. It was a small school district, and the class sizes in the elementaries were like 12 to 15 students in a classroom. The teachers there do an awesome job. I'm very proud of our local public school here, and I loved all my time there. And I just think that if you can work almost 30 years in a place and come out loving it just as much as you did the first day you went in, that money aside, that was reward enough. Just loving getting up and going to do your job every day. If you love your job, you never work a day in your life. And I really am so appreciative of that time in my life. And so anybody, I doubt there are any young people watching since we're like an old people station, but if you are young and thinking about going into the teaching profession, I highly recommend it. If you want to become rich and famous, that's not the place for you. But if you really love kids, you would want, and it would be a great profession to be a teacher. Admirable, and students always remember you. You know you made an impact in somebody's life when you can go down to the local Dollar General and see one of your old students and they hug you and talk about memories. And it was great. It was a great time in my life, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. So hope you enjoyed it. Comment below if you're a teacher or if you have a daughter that's a teacher or a son, and tell me some of their experiences, how long you might have taught, what you taught. Shh. And I guess Gooby wants something. I don't know what, but I guess I'll get off and go see what Gooby wants. So y'all have a great day now. You hear?